do I miss the friction that used to be there in older DDO or MMOs in general? I'm not sure what you mean by friction exactly. So, by friction, are we talking just like inconvenience? Because the biggest one I can think of is I had a friend who wanted me to play Everquest with him, and not modern Everquest, Project 99, like the oldest school Everquest. And I found that a lot of the things people talk about being difficult were mostly like inconvenience. It's just like, oh, and if you want to do anything, well, you've got to run for 45 minutes before you can even get to the thing. It's just like, that's just it disrespecting my time at that point. No, like, players couldn't overpower content. Was there a time when you couldn't overpower content? Because, we'll take, for example, since you mentioned older MMOs, the one that I played the most back in the day was World of Warcraft. You couldn't overpower the most up-to-date, most recent content, because that was the hardest content in the game. But if you were on, say, the Naxxramas patch, like really late into vanilla, you could 5 or 10 man Molten Core. I mean, you can overpower it real easy, because, you know, it's older content. Older content is going to be power crept. That's just how things are. Likewise, while leveling, and some of this is like in-game power creep, and some of it is player skill. So, especially since you mentioned older MMOs, a lot of the quote-unquote difficulty of older MMOs was the lack of community resources, that no one knew what they were doing, and that even if the game was easy if you just played it right, no one knew how to play it right. So, it seemed more difficult. They didn't have the in-game resources, like nowadays in WoW. There's an in-game journal that will tell you, it won't tell you like how to beat the fight, or at least it didn't last time I played, but it would tell you what all of the boss's abilities do. So like, it would tell you, it's like, oh yeah, for this ability, you need to group up. Where on the map you need to group up, what the timing is, how you need to do it, who on your team needs to do it. We're not going to explain any of that, but we're going to say this ability that's going to come out, it's going to split its damage between all the different people, and it's up to you to figure out how to deal with that. So, but back in the day, you didn't even get that. You got a things are happening, and try to read the debuffs, and or read like the things that the boss shouts at you, like what they're actually saying in like shout chat. So that does make things more difficult, but I'm not sure if it's the kind of difficulty that I miss. So this is actually something that comes up in puzzle games as well. There's friction between expectations and reality for things like people who want a puzzle that's like, give me the rules to the puzzle so that I can then solve the puzzle. And then there are the people who want a more, we'll say, exploratory approach where you don't get the rules of the puzzle either. You just kind of have to not only figure out what to do, but what are the possible options to do. And I think I fall more into the camp that I want to know the rules of the game and then play it, not I have to try to figure out what the rules are. That said, both styles have their places, and I will say sometimes I like it, but the you must figure out what the rules are style is much more difficult from a design perspective. Fully blank puzzles suck. See, you're on the far side of that further than I am. Like, as I was just saying, they require a lot better game design in order to make them not frustrating. Like, the ability to make it discoverable, like, make it able for people to figure out without just, like, blind guess and check everything, is a design not skill, but a design consideration, a design goal, we'll say. Like, you not only need to make the puzzle the right difficulty, but if you're going to make it so you don't know the rules,
but the key thing is
making it so the player can figure out those rules is a whole other design challenge on its own. Nowadays, the journal, well, the journal is going to tell you essentially the same information that was on the debuff tooltips. It's just now you don't need to stop and like try to take a screenshot of it beforehand. You can read it before the fight. And I do much prefer the difficulty of execution, where it's just like, once you know what you want to do or want to try to do, like, you still need to actually do it. So, yeah, there's a whole, there are different philosophies on this, of course, and some of it is not even, like, necessarily philosophies within a certain genre, but it's just how different genres operate. But this is a very long answer to say, I don't particularly miss some things, but I do miss other things, because a lot of it depends on, well, a case-by-case basis for my own tastes, and somewhat on the execution of it. Because one of the really positive things, there's a certain sense of, like, accomplishment and victory that comes from figuring out the harder puzzle where it didn't even give you the rules. And some people really like to chase that. But in my case, I'll use an example of things like fast travel. There's certain things that I will count as, and I don't know if this is a common term. It's a term I've heard used before, but I don't know if it's been used in this case. But the concept of fake difficulty. It's like, is it hard? It's like, no, it's just inconvenient. It's like, it's just time consuming. There's no difficulty, it's just mind numbing. And that's how I felt a lot about my time spent in Everquest. It's very much, a lot of the quote-unquote difficulty that I experienced was just inconvenience of, like, trying to get places. Now, there's another kind of difficulty, which is actually more of a gameplay styling thing, which is, like, your more fast-paced, arcadey part style versus your more slow tactical style. And that's actually a big difference between old and new MMOs. How long do you need to heal between fights? How long do fights last? How many things can you fight at one time? Those things are a big difference. But the question is then, is it harder to fight one thing at a time and then sit and have to eat and drink for 30 seconds after each guy? It's like, I mean, maybe. It's definitely more time consuming. But on the flip side, like, the easy counter-argument, the argument I'm making right now, is like, well, if it's just a matter of, like, time difference doesn't make it difficult, then we'll just one-shot everything and it won't be any easier forehead. Which is a decent counter-argument to what I'm saying, except that it's a little bit more nuanced than that. In the whole, it's like, well, it's a matter of degrees. Yeah, it was more talking about mechanical difficulty, not like having a button to heal the fold, not being able to solo raid at highest difficulty. Yeah. Well, but this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. If we're talking, I don't even think in MMOs people are soloing easily freshly released raids. Like, I don't think that's a thing. Like, the fact that it's possible is actually a different question than whether it's easy. Because I, personally, am a big fan of that sort of challenge run. So, the thing is, I think I lost these videos, because I uploaded them to, oh, what site was it? Plays.tv, which doesn't exist anymore and hasn't for some time. But when the level cap was this was a couple expansions after... Oh, which expansion was it in WoW? Suffice to say, an expansion had moved forward, but I think this was during the Panda expansion, maybe. But the level cap had been higher, but WoW has a feature to support smurfing, or twinking, depending on how you want to phrase it, where you can turn off experience gains. And I left a character capped at an old level cap and soloed the first raid on level. Was it easy? No. No, it wasn't. I had to use all sorts of weird little tricks to make it work. But the challenge was the point. Now, should that have been possible at all? I mean, maybe you could argue that, you know, raids shouldn't be soloable. But if people want to find ways to do it, I don't see why that's a problem. But not having a button to heal to full. So here's the thing about the... I've glossed over some of your things. So there's a... On the topic of mechanical difficulty, there are a couple different forms of mechanical difficulty. Like, one is just APM. And you can argue for things like, and here's a big difference between, let's say, Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. Final Fantasy XIV's global cooldown on abilities is significantly longer than WoW's. Like, I think WoW's defaults to 1.5 seconds, and FF14's defaults to 2.5. This makes it much, much slower. You don't have to press as many buttons. In fact, since I believe they gutted a lot of off-global cooldown abilities as well, so it's even slower than it used to be. But does that mean it's less mechanically difficult because you're hitting fewer buttons, or has it moved the difficulty from hit buttons as fast as possible to hit buttons while you are managing your positioning better, or while you are managing your cooldowns better? Like, there are a variety of different types of difficulty which will appeal to different people, and some of it is where is the guy? There he is. And different people will argue for which one is the right one. This also comes in with things like... it actually comes up a lot in MMO discourse, but like, it used to be way harder, you had to do all these things. Another form of difficulty is like prep time. Like, nowadays you can just kind of walk in whenever, whereas before, I mean, you had to spend a long time farming your executables to get all of your nature resists to do on Courage. So, okay, that's another form of difficulty. If you want to do this thing, then you need to spend a lot of time doing something else, farming beforehand. So, the amount of prep time is a way to do difficulty as well. So, I feel like I'm not actually answering your question. I'm just kind of talking about the topic, but not actually giving my opinion. I don't miss it, necessarily, because I can still get whatever difficulty I want by simply increasing the difficulty. Or doing challenge runs, as we did yesterday. We did a challenge run, Rogue Legacy, see how few lives we can beat it in. We got it in 7. Which is, a pretty good showing. It's not my personal best. Personal best is 5. But still. But yeah, so a lot of this comes down to personal beliefs on what counts as real skill. And you even get this across, say genres. Maybe you get someone who's a big first-person shooter thing and thinks like, oh, well, any tab target MMO is inherently unskillful because there are no skill shots. It's like you're locked on. You just like hit the button and it automatically hits. You don't need to aim. Like, because aim is another kind of skill that you can introduce in a game. I remember, since we're on the topic of MMOs, not first-person shooters, but I did play Neverwinter for a little while. Not too long. But I played a healer, and the heals were skill shots. You needed to be able to hit the person that you were aiming at in order to land the heal on them. So that's a different style of difficulty, and it's a mechanical thing. Other mechanical things would be things like reaction time. In fact, for MMOs, that's like, okay, when there's some boss mechanic coming out, how long do you have between when you see the attack indicator and when you have to move? Like, if it's going to take you 1 second to move the required distance, and you get 1.5 seconds warning, well, you're going to have a hard time. You just need to react within that half a second. Actually, half a second is pretty damn long for reaction time for a game that is reaction time based. But you know what I mean. It's a thing. Another one would be clarity. And this is something that actually is a big difference between newer and older MMOs. Things tend to be telegraphed much, much better. Like, for the big example here would be, the boss is going to do a big wind-up slam attack that's going to hit everywhere in this section of the boss arena. Whether that's a circle, whether that's a rectangle, you know, whatever. And some older MMOs, or MMOs of a particular style, won't show you where it's going to hit. They're going to show you the boss raising his hammer and facing a certain direction, and you'd best figure it out. And others are going to put, like, markers on the ground for where it's going to land. Now, is one of those more difficult than the other? Yes, it is harder to read animations than to look at the ground. This is a big thing with MMO rating. It's not that each individual, and this is why it gets kind of a bad reputation among, you know, higher skilled gamers, is that it's easy to say it's like, oh, you just need to do this. That's so easy. You just need to do that. It's so easy. The trick with MMO raids is that usually, or at least in more modern MMOs, it's not that they're asking you to do something that's hard. It's that they're asking you to do 4 different things at the same time that are each individually easy. It's like, oh, healing is so easy now, you don't have to worry about mana problems. It's like, yeah, but there are like 3 times as many ground effects and all coming out at the same time that I need to dodge while I do that. So this is a big factor in the difficulty of certain things, is just the cognitive overload that you're tossing onto your players for how many things can you deal with at the same time. And it's a big thing in encounter design. It's like, sure, that might be an easy mechanic, but maybe you've already thrown 3 different mechanics at them, and their brains are fried.
You are now free to pass.
So, like, yeah, there's all sorts of different types of difficulty, and I seek out the ones that appeal to me. In this case, like, since we're on DDO, I'm not usually, and this is not, of course, an always thing, I'm not usually playing DDO to crank the difficulty as high as I can and see what I can do. Now, we do that sometimes. We've done that on stream repeatedly, where, like, we'll start the first quest on R1, and as stream goes on, we keep increasing it, and see how high we can go before it gets too much for us. And it's a good time. I'm not always in the mood for that sort of difficulty, but it is a good time. Sometimes the enjoyment isn't from the difficulty, it's from the experimentation. Again, with DDO, we have a lot of good experimentation things with, like, different builds, which is a good time. But yeah, it's actually one of the really fun things about this whole history of gaming thing is we played so many different genres as we've gone through So we get to experience all the different types of difficulty in game design things and how they all interplay. We've played some first-person shooters, we've played puzzle games, we've played platformers, and it's all pretty neat, actually. Since we talked about things like prep time and having to like spend time grinding, spend time crafting, that's never been the kind of difficulty that I personally have liked, which is why I don't much go for the survival crafting genre. Despite that I have heard a lot recently regarding POW World having their 1.0 release, which is apparently very, very good. However, it is a very, very good survival crafting game, and I've just never felt drawn to that genre.
Throughout my life,
because people were always comparing it to Pokemon, but apparently it's much more like a
I love these hills.
what's the word for? Yeah, just a survival crafting game. You know, your rusts, your arcs, that whole thing.